Alrighty. I am live again. Gonna change my levels a little bit. Make sure I get some of that good old music in. My headphones. And how is the levels when I go to talk? Seems like I'm a little quiet maybe, but move the microphone a little bit closer. And yeah, alright. Cool. So it's been a little bit. I had kind of a short haphazard last week. I did start to work on some cool stuff on the engine, but I was dealing with a bit of brain fog and I didn't really recognize it at the time. But yeah, I had in the week, because I was dealing with multi-day long migraines and things like that, and it was not a great environment for thinking. Anyway. So, yeah, where were we? Yeah, we were working on the inspector, and we didn't really get very far because I was kind of out of it. But anyway, we were working on a way to get the sprite component working inside of the inspector, so that way we can select a different path and for a texture and change texture settings and things like that. But we were approaching it from an API standpoint. We wanted to make this general use. While I was down and out, I did a couple of changes that are not really a huge deal. I wound up going in and cleaning up some of my Doxygen comments and cleaning up the documentation. Some busy work that I needed to do, which didn't really require me to be firing at full throttle. But yeah, so I suppose let's dive right in. Gonna hop to, the file was in scene editor, inspector, draw. Okay, so this is where we do all the code for the inspector. This is the section that we are working on now. We have a whole block here that handles setting up the collapsible. I suppose I should leave the program running while I'm going through this. But we have a section that whenever we go to register a component inspector, it will add a collapsible header like this. I'll eventually need to customize that and add some controls to be able to remove said components, but that's a Michael thing. Realizing right now I forgot to open up my Twitch overlay. There we go, so I can see any chats that come in. And this works basically just by going through every registered component inspector, which is a string representing the name and a callback pointer, which does the actual inspector section. We check to see whether that entity has that component type, which is a whole thing on its own. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I forgot to update the docs on this. Entity, component type. Oh no, I got it. But the CH one has component function. Yeah, the register component type I didn't update. So DCF, QCF, and we'll add another line down here. That would be CHCF, pointer to the just one of those things I don't want to forget about. All right, and then inside of the renderer 2D, this is where we actually implement our inspector. So we have an initialization. We say if EP editor register component inspector, and then we pass in the call to onSprite inspector. When we go to add other kinds of component types to this system, we would do a similar call. We would do one for example, text components, or animated sprites or something like that. Like that. This is how we would add those inspectors. But for now, it's just the one. And inside of here on Sprite Inspector, we were in the middle of setting up inspectors similar to the way we did on the transform component. Because if we recall, on the transform component, we actually had to put in some custom logic to be able to do this, where it gives you dashes to indicate that you're selecting multiple items that have a difference of opinion in a specific field. And then you can do this and make it so that they change values altogether. So we needed to do something similar here. And now that I'm thinking about it, this is going to be a very common thing for inspectors. That is, the point of the inspector is that it'll allow you to view and manipulate data for any and all entities that you selected. So that said, virtually every inspector extension that we write is going to need to have something like this. So maybe I should be adding a helper function instead. Let me head to Trello. I had a a note about how this is supposed to work with your ImGui. Yeah, so there's an open issue for this particular question. How to set value to drag scalar but stores some undefined value. And the idea is that if you wanted to have a mixed value like this, where we have multiple items selected and you see the differences here, the problem is that no matter how you slice it, the box is going to have a value assigned to it. So the first selected item here, sprite 2, has got a value of -2. Now if I go to shift select the rest of them, this looks correct, except for if I type in -2, nothing happens because ImGui doesn't realize that the value has changed because it hasn't actually changed. This has the internal value of the first selected item. So in order to make this work correctly, there needs to be an extension to ImGui. And it looks like this was something that was a work in progress feature, but it hasn't quite been implemented yet. The idea is that you're supposed to say push item flag, and then you just push the value ImGui item flags mixed value, and then that makes whatever you do next display as if it's mixed. But as of July 29th, apparently this was only available for checkboxes. And this issue is still open, so apparently it hasn't been implemented yet. 6 days ago there was somebody was responding to my comment of interest. How can I set 0 in this case? Who said that? Yeah, this guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. So what he's talking about here is that you can set to invalid values to indicate that it's an undefined value. But the problem is that it doesn't allow you to then pick up and click and drag from the undefined value. We were doing that at first with not a number. But yeah, anyway. Let me go to pull requests and the off chance that somebody has already implemented this and it's pending pull request. Doesn't look like it, so I think we're gonna need to bite the bullet on this one and just do it ourselves. How far behind in Dear ImGui are we? So I'm gonna go to my branch of Dear ImGui. 123 commits behind. That's fun. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of little fixes that I may want to get myself. I'm gonna close all open windows, go to ImGui demo.cpp, and let's take a look at the ImGui demo widgets. What I want to do is I want to see if I can find a case where this is in use. So let's go through the demo. It doesn't look like the mixed value flag is in use inside of the demo. Let's just search for it in or that'd be yeah, vendor ImGui. Okay, so we have the flag and widget support. Okay, beta represent a mixed indeterminate value, generally multi-selection where values differ. Currently only supported by checkbox. Later should support all sorts of widgets. All right, let's take a look at the other locations. It looks like these three mentions cover just checkboxes. Okay, so first, which color are we in? Okay, we're in ImGui checkbox. We have a Boolean that represents mixed value. It is set to true if the flags has the mixed value bit set. That makes sense. So if mixed value, undocumented tri-state mixed indeterminate checkbox. This may seem awkwardly designed because the aim is to make ImGui flags mixed value supported by all widgets, not just checkbox. All right, so how does this work? The pad IMX, IMFloor. I don't know, square size? That must be some constant size that they use for spacing things. Window draw list, add rect field. So they'll render a check mark or they'll add a filled rectangle. And I'm willing to bet that this filled rectangle is the little dash symbol. Let's try this out. I'm going to go into sprites.cbp. And so this is the inspector that we were working on. I'm just literally going to take over this section to test out the flag on the checkboxes. That's interesting. Push item flag doesn't appear here. It looks like I have to include ImGui internal for this. I don't really like the idea of including ImGui internal everywhere, but it has so many helper functions. There we go. All right, and back down to where we were. We'll have push. Push item flag, yep. And then we can do ImGui item flags mixed value and then set it to true. And then we'll pair that with an ImGui pop item flag. Okay. You would think that if this was going to be, maybe it's only in the internal header because it's a beta feature. You may use this file to debug, understand, or extend ImGui features, but we don't guarantee any forward compatibility. Okay, yeah. So this is like optional stuff, I guess. And then we can try doing a checkbox. So ImGui checkbox, pass in the label example, and then a pointer to a bool. So we'll do that here. Bool for static bool is checked. And then we'll pass in is checked, the address for is checked. Okay, and this is just to kind of see what the flag is supposed to do. recently switched to decaf, and I think I am enjoying this. Used to be that if I drank coffee in the afternoon, I'd be up for a very, very long time, which some would argue is the point, but I do like to drink my coffee and fall asleep at night. And this has been a helpful middle ground. Okay, so let's open up a scene, because we need a scene open in order to see the inspector, and we've got the example. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's mixed, supposedly. Is it actually changing the value though? But when I go to click on it, it doesn't actually make a change. So I suppose what we would need to do is we would need to, if we were to utilize this flag in the transform or in the sprite for the drag sliders, we would probably need to have a separate bool tracking whether it's mixed, and then which we already do, technically speaking. So if the value is mixed, we would set its appearance to look like this. Otherwise, yeah. So let me, for an experiment, we'll do static bool is mixed equals true. I will say if is mixed, is mixed. Then we will do the push flag. Then we'll say if is mixed. No, what we'll do is we'll do this whole thing in a block, like that. And then we will do else, and we'll just do the thing by itself. So that way, the code inside this block can change the value of is mixed. So we'll say we'll have a bool that's prev is checked. This is all kind of this is all sort of just hacky code, but I'm just doing a little bit of experimentation. So we have a boolean here that checks to see what, or that stores the previous value of is checked. And after we've gone through the checkbox call, we'll say bool if, wait, hold this on another line. We'll say if prev is checked is not equal to is checked, then we'll set is mixed to false. Cool. So the idea is that the first time I go to click on the checkbox, it will go away from being mixed. Assuming that it actually changes the value, which I assume it will. But yeah, let's give this a shot. Okay. Clicking on it once, checks it. Clicking on it a second time unchecks it. Right, so that seems to work. So basically the idea is that you push the flag, and the flag makes the box appear a certain way. However, it's also going to have to behave a certain way, because you want the ability to, for example, in the drag box, you want the ability to to type in the value to be identical to what the existing value is, and then have ImGui consider that a change. So like when we go to do this on a new section, when we go to do ImGui drag scalar, this will normally return whether there was a change. So what we would do is if you type in a new value and that value is equal to the pre-existing value, no matter what you type, if the mixed value flag has been pushed, then it will still return true and indicate that there was a change. But yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward to understand how it's supposed to work. Let's check. checked. Once we've implemented this, I think what I'll do is I'll make a wrapper for I'll need to do a couple of helper wrappers for things that you'll commonly use in Enterprise when you're making a thing. But I'll hold off on that until I've got this sorted out. Okay. Previous checked. I just want to quickly confirm. We start with is checked as false, so clicking on it would make it true. I just want to confirm that the behavior is actually working the way I expect. So when I go to click on it from the mixed state, that it goes to unchecked. Oops. Okay. Cool, and that actually just works perfectly. All right, so we've got an idea how the use case is going to pan out. Let's write a test for it, and then we will implement the feature. So the test is basically just we'll do is mixed in a second. We'll do this whole is mixed thing again. But instead of using is checked, we'll have a float value. And actually, you know what, to make this a little bit easier on me, I'm not going to do this in here anymore. I'm going to take that all out of this section, and I will put it in inspector.cpp directly. So after all of the after all the rest of the stuff in the inspector, we'll just have a thing here where we'll do the test directly. So we've got is mixed, and then we've got a static float test val. We'll set it to 0 at first, and we'll say we'll start it out. Well, I'll give it a value, but we'll start it out at as if it is mixed, and then we'll we don't have to do the previous value check anymore because we just check the return value of the float scalar. We'll push the flag mixed value. We'll do ImGui drag scalar. I'll put in a label test mixed scalar. Suppose I can put spaces in there. And then we would do the data type. Oh, actually, I don't need to do drag scalar. I can just do drag float because it wraps around this whole thing. Cool. And then we get the address of the float value, so pass in test val's address. And then the speed, which has a default of 1, and I can leave everything else at the defaults. Okay. And then we'll say bool is changed equals the return result. And then we can use is changed down here. Oops, is changed. So if the value has changed, we will set is mixed to false, and then that will allow us to move on. Hey person med Brucknerrun. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Welcome in. How are you doing today? Don't worry, everybody butchers my username. How are you supposed to pronounce it? What is that a different language, or is that Norwegian? Nice. I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna have Google tell me. Wait. that's not the, there we go. Does it not? Oh, that's interesting. Usually Google will just pop up with like a video that will tell you how it's pronounced. Sorry, I'll just have to deal with it. Have to bite around it. Anyway, I'm working on Google Translate has something. It's just, oh, it translates to username, huh?
Brukernavn.
Brukernavn. Brukernavn. Does that sound about right?
Brukernavn. Brukernavn.
Brukernavn. Nice. Yeah, it kind of swallows the V in the pronunciation. But nice. Yeah, so we're just working on ImGui. I'm implementing a feature that was a work in progress feature for ImGui so that I can use it in my game engine. And we are writing a test for it right now. It is a game engine. It's a general purpose game engine written for Mac and PC. Right now what we're working on is the editor. I'm not really focusing on making a super high quality renderer or something like that. I'm more focused on making a super flexible framework so that you can plug in your own renderer if you want. That's my plan for the moment. So like the renderer that you're seeing right here, it's built within the framework so that you can like do exactly the same thing or do it your own way in your own games, but still have a general purpose editor. I'll have to do like a YouTube video about design goals at some point, but yeah, what I'm working on right now is a general purpose extensible editor, and what that involves right now is getting the inspector to be able to be extensible for new kinds of component types. And the thing that I'm getting stuck on a little bit is that right now, out of the box with ImGui, it's not easy to do something like this, to have mixed values inside of the fields. So like this, like right here, I've got three different sprites selected. They differ on the Y value, but they don't differ on these others, so it displays their value. So I want to make a general purpose extension that lets me do that, and it turns out that in Dear ImGui, Okernet, Omar, the guy who creates it, he apparently has been planning on this and just hasn't quite done it yet, so I'm doing it for him. You're also working on a game engine? That's cool. Tell me about your game engine. That test is all written. Cool. Let's go to imgui.cpp or here. It would be ImGui widgets is where we would go. It's a 2D engine primarily focused on RPG titles or something similar. Nice. Yeah, that's pretty fun. 2D is woefully underused in my opinion. I think it's gaining popularity. Like there's even like AAA or AA developers that are doing 2D stuff now. Like Ori and the Blind Forest is like lush and vibrant, but it's actually technically still a 2D game. With a few 3D models sprinkled in. But yeah, that's pretty nice. It's nice to have a tailored solution for a specific kind of game as well. Like first-person shooters like work great on Unreal Engine because it was made for first-person shooters, really. Written from scratch in plain C, currently using DirectX 11 for rendering and pure Windows. That's nice. I love to see people doing their own tech. Yeah, throw it in the chat and I'll take a look at it later. If you have it on GitHub or someplace. What's the ImGui drag? ImGui. I suppose I can just control click on the name and then find my way around. So we're looking at drag scaler. Okay, I'm gonna... Don't really have too much going on at the moment. Recently got basic text rendering for the editor going. Nice. Yeah, text rendering... I'm self-taught and I'm by no means a professional, but text rendering was a huge hurdle for me to overcome. So getting that done yourself on the low level, that's pretty awesome, man. I appreciate it. But yeah. Are you more in the camp of make a game and then make games, not engines, or are you in the camp of are you wanting to make a tool that's going to be used for a bunch of different kinds of games? I'm going to need to do a comparison between ImGui drag float and ImGui check box. Planning to make several games yourself? Nice. Yeah, game engines are useless if you don't use them for anything. I think the kinds of games that I'm imagining will be made in my engine are going to be more like action games, but I'm not limiting myself to that. Don't really do that much open source. Got some open source projects, but they were all uploaded to GitHub after the first release. Oh, I see. So this one is closed source, or are you planning on going open source later with it? Or is that to be decided? Currently it's closed. Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. This was closed for a considerably long while before I first uploaded it to GitHub. So let me control / and open this up on 2 views. I want to compare how ImGui widgets utilizes that flag on the checkbox and how I am implementing it on the drag scaler. Also a bit skeptical with open source. Might make it available source in the future. Yeah, open source is there's the practical meaning that people can see your source code, and then there's the legal sense in that it has an open source license where people can make changes and stuff. You definitely want to think that through, because you can always change your license later, but it's harder to walk back going open source. Yeah, on mine I wound up going open source because I realized I'm probably never ever going to sell this. like even if I make it like a kick-ass thing, the amount of time and money it would take to generate like sales dollars out of it would just not be worth it. So I decided to just open source it. Plus my engine is a disaster internally. Yeah. Yeah, I'm learning quite a lot as I go with this engine. Where's the flag I'm looking for? Let me go to drag scaler. Here. Okay. Yeah, I've had to go through several refactors on my engine, huge ones, in order to get it to where it is now, just because I didn't know exactly where I was going at first. All right. Here it is, mixed value. So what they did is they did a mixed value. They got the global last item data .in flags, and then check that against mixed value, the flag. When it's a mixed bag of 3 spoken languages, and I've got a lot of convention breaking stuff, yeah, it would be, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's, do you find it tough to do comments in programming languages in Norwegian? Because it's like a lot of different languages can't be represented in UTF-8, which is like the more popular formatting style or encoding style for source code. Using Visual Studio and Microsoft's build tools. I think they default to wider character encoding. I can't quite remember, but you can comment find in other languages, it sounds like. Though you should probably pick one. Way back in time when I used GCC, didn't like when you used, yeah, I hear it's better about that now. Okay, so we've already got the ImGui context data. I can just paste this line, basically get the mixed value flag. I like writing code. How I enjoy writing and not following conventions set by other people. And I've been called a madman many times. Yeah. It's it's good to feel free to break out a convention, but it's also important to understand why conventions exist. For the longest time, I was using in C++. I was using for this project. I was using classes as if they were namespaces, because I thought that would just be the easiest way for me to have global state that I can share among CPP files. But it just wound up being too difficult to navigate. And if I had just followed everybody's advice and not done that, then I wouldn't have had to do a big refactor later. Most recent project on GitHub is some unclean code that actually rotates a window by 45 degrees. Oh, really? The whole window? Or you mean like the contents of the window? Like I'm imagining like the entire frame of the window being tilted 45 degrees. Oh, that's fun. That's interesting. I'd be interested to see how that works. Nice. Yeah, go ahead and put that into the chat and we can see it. I think I'm going to do the mixed value checking directly ahead of the format string stuff, because if we have a mixed value, then we're going to ignore the format string, so we'll need to know that right here. We'll say if mixed value. If mixed value, then we will do it one way, otherwise we'll do it the way we've always done. That's fun. I enjoy the... up there on the corner, I thought for a second that was Neon Cat, but it looks like it's just a window over another window with a smiley face. It's been a while since I thought about Neon Cat. Nice. Whoops. It's a smiley window over another window. Yeah, that's pretty nice. There we go. Had the thought for this project to simply just rotate the icon by 45 degrees. Yeah. Yeah, that would do. Okay, so what I think I'm doing here, I am setting the format string to be equal to a dash like that. If we're in mixed value. So if we set the mixed value flag, it'll behave identically until it'll behave identically, except for it'll display a dash. Let me save that change real quick and test it. All right. So, all right, I've got the thing set up here. So we got a dash. If I go to click and drag, it changes. Okay, so that's step one, I suppose. It's not super elegant. I might want to jazz up the way that it looks. Let me refresh. Just having a dash is kind of bland, but hey, technically it works. So step one, having the appearance change when we are using mixed value, that's done. Okay, and then we'll say, no, I'm not gonna. Okay, tabbing or control clicking on drag turns it into a text input. So basically, whenever you make a change to the value, I want to include the case that you are include the case that you type in the same value that's already in there. If I'm remembering correctly, there's a flag in here that, oh, here it is, value changed. Const bool value changed equals drag behavior. I don't think I need to know what that means, what that does. If value changed, mark item edited ID. Display value using user provided display formats. And then we return value changed. We don't modify value change after this. So I'm going to need to conditionalize this a little bit, I think. Because I need this to reflect true, even if you change it to the same value as before. So I guess I'm going to have to conditionalize drag behavior. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess this will apparently affect all of the I would imagine that this would affect things besides drag scalar as well, but I'm actually only seeing it used in 2 places. Actually, I'm only seeing it used in 1 place. So, yeah. Huh. All right. Okay, so they get the global context here. Return false, return false, return false. Well, at some point it has to return true. Is there an overload? No, there's not. It's just the one. Oh, they're all okay. They're all on the far right side. Let me make this a wider view. I'm not a huge fan of having your lines go this wide because of this reason. Because I like to be able to see it in a side-by-side view. But yeah, so in drag behavior, there's a templated drag behavior call. That's interesting. So I guess we're going to need to look at that template. Hopefully there's not a whole bunch of specializations. Okay, good. It's just the one template. Alright, so this is called by drag behavior when the widget is active, held by the mouse, or being manipulated by with nav controls, which I'm assuming that includes keyboard input. Is clamped, is logarithmic, is floating point. Default tweak speed. Okay, so inside of this block, I need to see where all the places it returns. So I'll do Control F, limit my search to the text block, and then search for a return. Okay, there's 3 places. That's weird. Oh, I misread. Okay. I thought for a second that they all just returned false. I'm like, why do that? But there's a... Okay, so basically at the very, very bottom, it'll return true, except for in these 2 circumstances. Drag current accumulator dirty returns false. Oops. I guess that means because you're still working with it. And then apply result. If dereferencing value equals value current, return false. Otherwise return true. Okay, so this is the section. So basically what it's doing here is it's taking all the code above is going through all the stuff that it needs for dragging and setting the actual value. And when we're done, we have a value called vCurrent. And then at the very, very end, we check to see whether they're the same. If they are the same, then we return false because that indicates that we haven't changed. Otherwise, we return true. And what I need to do is I need to make it so that this returns true if we are in a mixed view. So my engine is written in 3 languages, mostly English, some occasional Norwegian, and a sprinkling of my own language. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, if you're working with folks that speak all those languages, then great. But yeah, you may want to pick a language if you're going to have other people work on the project. Is that something that you're interested in? Is having people work on the project with you at some point? Once it's big enough? You're the only person that understands your own language. Wait, are you talking about... Sorry, you're not talking about Norwegian. You're talking about a programming language, huh? Or you just mean that you're the only person who can read... Wait, you're right. Is that what you mean? No, your own made-up speaking language? What? You made up a whole language? Like, really? Because that's really hard, and that's really dope. Nice. What's your language called? Good question. You'll have to come up with a word in your language that is the name of your language. Currently I just call it Caserve, which means language. Nice. We call Earth Earth because it's made out of earth. So that's a perfectly good reason to call it that. Okay, so I need this here. And then I can do an if and mixed value. My username translates to person with username. Nice. I think I saw that on Google Translate, actually. When you had me looking in here in Norwegian, I copied and pasted your name and it showed up. Goes out of that. Okay, so here's what I've done. I've got, in the section where we were applying the result, I am now also using the Boolean mixed value. So if it's a mixed value, then we don't care whether the value has changed. We'll just return true. So I think this will work, hopefully. We'll see. F7. Moment of truth time. Okay, so this is a mixed value equal to 5. If I type in 5 and press enter, okay, it still doesn't work. So I have to make another change. I'm gonna set a breakpoint. Well, that's gonna be tough. Yeah, I'll set a breakpoint because I think it's the only visible value. Okay. Another thing I do is cram in small bits and bobs absolutely everywhere. Yeah. As long as you're using source control, it's totally fine to experiment, but source control makes it a whole lot easier to track all those bits and bobs. Source control. So like I'm using Git for my version control. Okay. Sorry. So, I continue. I think what might be happening here is that this works if you click and drag. But not if you type. It's all on this one USB box with an occasional backup to a hard drive. Okay, yeah, that's good to be backed up. Even when I'm not working in open source, the way that I usually work is I just work directly on a RAID, and then I just happen to have a redundant copy because that's how RAIDs work. I find that way easier than having to back things up, but it requires setting up your own RAID array. You have to buy the extra hard drive and the control and stuff. But yeah. Even if I'm working offline, not working online, I would use something. Either Git or Mercurial or whatever you're comfortable with. Well, yeah, it takes practice to get in the loop of committing very regularly, but I would highly recommend everybody who programs ever to do regular commits, because otherwise you don't have a panic button. If you screw something up that's huge and you don't have the ability to just undo it, It's a dangerous place to be. Okay, so here's what I found. The code that I changed has no impact on this at all. Apparently this is only called when you're clicking and dragging. So I'm gonna leave the code there because it's not hurting anything, but it might not be helping anything either. In the drag scalar call, we've got the format string here. We'll look again for return lines, return statements inside of this block. Oops. So within this text here, we'll search for return. We have return temp input scalar, and then we have return value changed, and value changed is equal to drag behavior. But you know what I think? I think that this is the function that handles text input. Note that drag scalar functions are only forwarding the min-max values, clamping values if the ImGui, blah 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 blah. Okay, temp input scalar. Yeah, give me a second and I'll open up that link. They haven't been working on it for very long. But yeah, it's good to be in the habit of doing them doing them as you go instead of all in one day. Not that I can be too judgy, because in a lot of my recent streams, I've been doing a bunch of changes simultaneously. Because it was just easier to do it that way, but and then retroactively doing them as separate commits by committing specific files or ranges. But it's good to have that ability to reset. Yeah, okay, here we go. Temp input text. So I think that this is where I need to actually have my wrapper. So value changed equals false. And then down here, we have data type apply from text, which I'm assuming this actually does the text input. Only mark edited if new value is different. Okay, value changed equals memory compare, data backup, pdata. Okay, so this is the line I need to change. I've had them going about once a day before summer, as I was still in school and was updating to an already released program I had made. And then the new version is ready for release. Here's 50 patches. Yeah, I totally feel that. But anyway, this is where I'm going to need to do my comparison. So I'm going to need to have access to the mixed value boolean. However, I can't simply use it because I didn't see. I expect a red squiggle here. Yeah, G is unidentified. I need to get that global context, which is done with this line here. In other places in code, you would actually have to call a function to get the ImGui context, but from here we can just take the address of the global itself, because we're inside of the file that defines it. Okay, so now we've got a mixed variable, and we'll say if mixed value, then we will So if it's a mixed value, we'll just say value changed is true. Else we'll do this line. Yeah, dude, throw them in the chat. I don't think I'll be looking at them on stream, but I'll definitely look at them when we're done. What's the value changed default to? Value change defaults to false. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so this line will maybe do it. It'll maybe make this work. We'll see. All right, moment of truth time. Aha! I think it's working. Do I have any breakpoints in? No, I don't. Okay, so heading back to the inspector where I've got the actual code that I'm working on. So to review, we default to mixed value. The moment you go to change the mixed value, it will come back as changed, or it'll set the as mixed to false, and then it'll stop pushing that flag. But it'll start from the 5 value when I go to drag, and even if I type in the same exact number, which means that we're entering a value that hasn't actually changed anything yet, it'll still return true, so I can consider the value no longer marked. And that's the principal complaint with this open issue and the thing I'm trying to deal with. So I guess let's test it out. Let me go to the other inspector part up here, where we do the transform component. And I could probably make this a lot simpler now. Let me close out of that, close out of that. Open up my panel on the left. I feel a little bit comfortable when I have less negative space on the right, so I don't even need the panel. I just want to have it open so that the text is centered. And underneath the transform header, we got the push ID, position string. Also a bit cautious when adding Git to my engine, as VS is a tad bit trash with the integration. It's gotten a lot better. I'll say that, but it's Visual Studio for a while hasn't had very good integration with Git. I don't know when they made the change, but I recently fired up Visual Studio 2022 because I had a project that required it to build. And its Git control, its source control panel, was basically just lifted from Visual Studio Code, and that works pretty well. But there's still times when I have to go into the console and work in there, and that's that's fine with me. I think it's probably okay if there's niche things that don't find their way into a button on the GUI because people never use them or rarely use them. Okay, so what I was doing here was I was, instead of actually telling ImGui that I want it to be a mixed field, I was just replacing the text with dashes if my Boolean indicated that it was mixed. So I'm actually going to try out this newfangled thing by making an ImGui drag scalar. That does all the rest of this, but it no longer does the dashes itself. Instead, it'll just tell ImGui to do the dashes. Yesterday, even when I uploaded the rotating window code to GitHub, I had to create the repo 3 times in VS, and it refused to correctly sync. Oh yeah. I would never create a Git repo from a GUI. That's just the way that I am, but I would always do it from the command line, from the CLI. And I don't know if that's just me being too paranoid or whatever, but I just don't trust that it'll be set up the way I want. Like, a lot more often than not, GUI based stuff will make assumptions about how you want your code to be set up, and I'd rather just set up the files myself, and then just immediately go to initializing a repo. I know folks that will start the other way around, and they'll start on GitHub and they'll make the repo there, and then they'll clone it, and then they'll commit. But yeah, I would recommend learning the command line because it's really useful. It's not super difficult. It's just that there's a lot, and so sometimes it's like if you Google how to do something, and you don't get like the full picture of how it's supposed to work, then it can wind up being more confusing. But used to create the repo on the web and then clone it. Yeah, that's a popular way to do that. It works good every time because you're starting with the remote already set up, which is nice. All right, so here's what we've got. Instead of doing ispos access mixed as a ternary operator for the string, I'm going to be saying if that's true, then we will push the style. So that'll be ImGui push item flags, and the flag was ImGui item flags mixed value was the flag. Set that to true. So I've already mentioned my rotating window demo. Two other public projects I've got is a small utility to display a notification whenever the clipboard is updated. Yeah, that's useful. And a Windows 11 edition to add an RGB cycle onto window title bars. Also, that the title bars would RGB cycle. That's fun. As you can probably see here, I'm still working on Windows 10. I haven't tried out Windows 11 yet. Well, then no RGB windows for you. Yeah. Still, though, that's a fine concept. I haven't really, like, I use the Win32 API for my windowing. I create my own windows using the API, but I haven't really gotten too far into like the customization of windows. And I'm going to need to eventually, so that way I can make my editor look sleek and hip and lit and on fleek. But okay. All right, we'll see how this works for the transform position. I've basically got the same thing as before, but I'm using the newfangled way with the ImGui item flags. Oh, did it? That's nice. That's good. But yeah, the difference here is that now when I go to type in a number that's identical to the previous number, that it'll still make a change to all these selected items. Okay, here we go. So I've got items 1, 2, and 3 selected. The first item is 5, so this field technically has the value 5 in it. I am now going to type in the number 5, press enter. And it didn't work. Okay, well, that's too bad. Why didn't it work? Oh, because I'm not using the return value of, yeah. So I'll need to say is pos axis mixed at I equals return value of ImGui drag scalar. How are you building your engine, by the way? Are you oh, I should say oh, this is confusing. Like, are you building it with MSVC with solution files, or are you using CMake or something else? I guess in Visual Studio, your options are basically to use CMake or use solution files, but yeah. What am I overlooking? I can't drag and set the value either. Like, I can do it for axes that are not mixed. Wait, can I? Uh-oh. Okay, there's something broken now. Because now when I go to change the position of these others, it's being reset back to 0. Okay. Hey, good, Rocky. Is Unreal Engine 5 good with 2D games? I would say no. I mean, they will say yes, and you'll find surely a whole bunch of really beautiful, well-crafted 2D games in Unreal Engine 5. But it's not like, if you're doing a 2D game, you probably should not be using Unreal Engine 5 because its focus is on super amazing, blockbuster 3D graphics, and they tacked on 2D for the sake of being able to say they did. Like, if you were to just fire up the Unreal editor, you have to have like a super juiced out machine in order to just run the editor. Otherwise, your frame rate will drop like crazy. Unity is pretty good at 2D games. They have a lot more emphasis on 2D workflows. Okay, first commit to the engine with over 4 gigabytes. How big is this thing? How big is? I wonder how big mine is. I mean, I've been working on mine for a while. Yeah. Oh, just via cache data, yeah. Mine is a lot more lightweight, simply because I'm using CMake. And also I don't have a lot of data, a lot of image files or anything like that yet. But does it support C++? Out of the box, it does not. It's possible to code hook C++ stuff. Like, if you know how to use C# very well, you can link in libraries that are C++, and then like get your C++ working that way. But out of the box, you don't. If you have unless you have like the Uber license that gives you the source code to the Unity engine, then you're just working in C#. You can't like C++ script things. Though to be clear, it is a C++ game engine. It's programmed in C++ under the hood, but you're working in the C#.NET layer for your game code. Excluding the VS cache is 8 megs. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, the Microsoft docs are very good at covering C# topics. I learned most of everything I know about C# from there. And I feel like that teaching was pretty holistic. Oh, okay. Here's what I skipped. Okay, got it. I know pretty much everything Win32 from MSDN. Also, where I'd say 85 to 90% of the DirectX 11 knowledge. Yeah, that stuff is Microsoft's documentation for their own things tends to be pretty good, in my opinion. It's a little bit lackluster in some areas. So, like notably, the OpenGL stuff is a little dated. Like they don't make certain things clear that they really need to, like just simply how to synchronize your OpenGL like frame rate to the DWM. To my knowledge, that's not covered in MSDN at all. But if you're using their own technologies, the C# with .NET and Win32 API, yeah, they've got you covered. What I forgot to do was actually store the edited flag, so this should work now. So buying a C# course in Udemy is a bad idea? I have no idea. I've never used Udemy. Oh, thanks for the follow. Now let's see how this works. File open scene. Alright, got some sprites. The first sprite is at 0 on the x-axis, so if I type in 0, aha! That worked perfectly. That worked great. Alright, so then I go to select all these, and I go to drag, it'll set those. But basically, it was mixed value until I typed in a new value, which is exactly what I want. Okay, cool. So I think that's working pretty well. This feature is pretty much ready to go. I may want to make the styling look a little more consistent with other things in ImGui before I commit this, but yeah, I think this is doing what I want. Because now that I've got this working, I can just use that for the sprite and for everything else. Yeah, we'll have to see how scalable this solution is, but they made some real progress. So Microsoft is the best place to learn C#. I don't know. It's you're probably going to learn quite a bit studying in other places, but the actual documentation, like the programming guide that you see here, this covers so much. You can see like all my links are purple because I've gone through all of this a lot. I've studied this quite a lot. Virtually everything that you need to know is in here, but I don't know if it's the best way to learn it if you're new to it. I don't know what your experience level is with programming in general, but this is the place that I go when I need to know something, and you can straight up just read it from front to back, and it'll basically teach you C#. from everything from the syntax to whatever. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's beginner friendly. That's the trouble. So there might be other resources. I don't know what they are. I had already been a very experienced programmer before I went to learn C sharp, so I feel like I probably picked up faster using this than I would have if I had been a beginner. Um, but at least I recommend it as reference. Um, yeah, so if you're an intermediate, then you may be able to just read through that guide and basically learn how it works. Microsoft invented C sharp, so like they have the OG documentation. I don't think they do, but if you're wanting to learn like how to use it for like Unity, because like Unity is like the place for C sharp game development. There's that, and then there's XNA, and XNA is deprecated, so you're not really going to find any current documentation on that. It's been deprecated for I don't know how many years now. But just go through Unity's got a awesome training solution. I'm afraid I'm going to have to move on from this topic though, because like I'm not here to teach. No offense. But okay, so I've got a full-blown solution now that works. Yeah, no problem. So there was an issue I had open on Trello. Multi-edit differing transforms sometimes fails, meaning that if you try to edit one of these dashes, it can fail if you set it to be the same value as before. That's entirely fixed now. So I guess it would just be down to formatting this to make the mixed value flag available to everybody who's using Dear ImGui. That's something that I think I'm going to do offline. But now that I've got it, I can get to work on the sprite component and having it use mixed scalars without having to hack it together the way I used to do it. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back in like 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. Just gotta get some water. Alrighty, I'm back. Change the music up a little bit. There we go. Sweet. So where were we? So we got the feature for mixed fields set up in ImGui, so that way it actually works correctly, so that you can type in the same value as is actually stored in the field, and it will mark it as changed. So I can say -2.5 and whatever, and it'll still work correctly. I haven't implemented it for all of Transform quite yet, but I'm going to hold that off on the back burner because I just want to get the sprite component working. Cool. So back to renderer, or it would be sprites.cpp. This is the inspector callback for the sprites. We got a lot of the basic work done. We're tracking whether the min filter, mag filter, UVs, and texture fields are mixed. we've got for constant entity, we've gone through all of the selected entities and we've got a vector of their sprites, so we just operate them on we just iterate through them directly on a contiguous memory basis. That we get a reference to the first sprite, which actually could probably be, they could probably just do selected entities.begin. Remember those oddities that I mentioned? Hey Jolo, welcome in. Python finally gets a case switch. Yeah. Is it, and it's slower than if elif. Yeah, it was like, what's the point? But yeah, what about those oddities? Wait, no, this is correct. Alright, leave that. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Got a lot of people in. So instead of IE counting upwards logically, instead we've got erratic counting. I think I might not be following. Thanks, Joel. Yeah, thanks for looking. Message ID 1, 2. I guess I'm not following what it is you're looking at. These message IDs are supposed to be sequential. What are these IDs that you're looking at? Okay, I'm gonna hold off on the texture field real quick, and I'll just set this up for the other fields. So we'll do ImGui we'll say if. I'll do a loop through the UVs. Message ID 2. Usually most people have them sequential. Yeah, I guess it depends on your use case though. If you're talking about like constant values that you're going to be using like in switch statements or to pass messages around, sometimes it makes sense for them to be sequential. If you're talking about like IDs for like entities or things that you generate, sometimes you want those to be random. I myself use a quasi-random generator for IDs inside of the entity system. It's all constant values. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so we're going to do a loop through the UVs. So we'll do for int I equals 0, I is less than 4, I plus plus, I plus plus. And then we will do if is UV mixed at I. Any artsy story-driven platform game you recommend? Hash value, maybe? I'm assuming that you're talking to two of us there. Artsy story-driven platform I recommend. Well, my favorite of all time is Hollow Knight. That's a very amazing Metroidvania platform game that's got an amazing story and world building. But yeah, there's a whole bunch. I guess it just depends on what you're looking for. Some places I replaced a constant integer with dereferencing a string. Yeah. So like if you're talking about associating a string with a constant integer. L result star L. I think that's maybe a wide string pointer you're talking about. Are you're talking about Windows 32 API stuff? Yeah. but the string is being dereferenced and treated like an integer. Well, that doesn't sound right. Maybe they're using the first character of the string for something. I'm not really sure about that. I would have to know more about what it is you're doing and talking about to be able to give you any kind of advice. Okay, so using the newfangled ImGui push item flag, we're going to use mixed fields for the UV. It's got nothing to do with when API to do apart from the L result type. I'm scrolling back up through the text because I feel like I missed the introduction to this story or question. I did play Hollow Knight, or sorry, I did play Child of Light a little bit, but I got really bored, like, not very far in, and I eventually just stopped. So Child of Light is like an RPG, right? Where you got turn-based combat. Hollow Knight is an action game, so you got platforming and you've got sword fighting. And Hollow Knight is just amazingly good. It has no right to be as good as it is. It's a $30 game. It's the first game made by these guys, but it's just pitch perfect from start to end, in my opinion. So yeah, I think everybody with eyeballs should play Hollow Knight. It's just endlessly creative. A whole bunch of games started copying it afterward. So like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ori series, the Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Ori 1 came out before Hollow Knight and Ori 2 came out after Hollow Knight, and it was clear that they paid attention to Hollow Knight because they started copying all kinds of game mechanics. And if you go to play those, then you'll spot them right away. Yeah, I'm not really sure. The only thing I can think of, if you're talking about returning a string as a value that should have been an integer, what they might be doing is they might be returning non-zero. So like if it's a null string, then it returns 0 because the null termination character, the first character would be the null termination character, is a 0, and that would evaluate to false in a Boolean check. But maybe they don't care. They're just returning whether the string has any characters in it. That's the only thing I can think of. But all right, push item flag. ImGui item flags mixed. So now that we've implemented the ImGui mixed value flag, we need to do this and pop item flag, because I can spell today. And then in between, we'll do the drag scalar. I guess I will have to copy some code out of the inspector view. Because we currently don't have a multi-widths that allows... individual fields to be edited. It's somewhere where I need to return non-zero due to Win API, so instead of returning a boring 1, I'm returning an integer that nosy reverse engineers can convert back to a string. So, like, you would, return, like, the pointer to the first character as an integer, and then they would just cast that into a memory address and then find the string in read-only memory. Is that what you mean? I would say that if you're returning, like, are you talking about returning on the win32 function on the win main? Not a pointer dereferencing the pointer, so the first character. But if you're just returning the first character, then you can't get a string out of that, right? If you're trying to associate a number with a string, you might need to look into hashing. The dereferences more than the first character. So I'm going to copy and paste this whole thing. Like that. And then do some changes. It dereferences more than the first character. Yeah, what's up? Dereferencing a pointer means that you are... A pointer is a value that's a memory address. Yeah, dereferencing is finding what's at that memory address. Yeah, just like person med says. But if you're dereferencing, I mean, like a string is just a pointer to a character. So I don't know what you mean when you say that you're getting more than the character when you dereference. Like technically it's just a pointer to the first character, and then you have to do math to get the other characters. You know what? I should make this a thing. I should make my own version of the drag scaler, the multi-drag scaler. So that way, somebody who wants to do a multi-drag scaler can just use my library call instead of having to do all this custom stuff. uint pointer blue, casting blue to a uint pointer equals an integer. Oh, okay. So they're doing a multi-byte comparison. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Because an unsigned integer, depending on your implementation, but an unsigned integer generally on a 64-bit system is 4 bytes. So that makes sense. So it's a multi-byte character is what they're turning it into. Then undefined behavior in C++. Let's see also. I'm doing it for constants. This has nothing to do with comparison or the... Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, so I think that's technically called a multi-byte character. There's a type that's better for that, but it depends on your use case, I suppose. Yeah, I see what you mean. You can actually take and read a multi-byte value out as a string. Yeah, it's pretty handy too. A lot of low-level systems use that strategy. A lot of kernel errors will print out hexadecimal that reads as text. But that's technically different because you don't need to convert into ASCII or anything like that. Alright, so let's add a section. I think I know where I want to put this code. Works for me, and it's a lot more exciting than boring was a return value. Yeah, you know, whatever works. In some sense, whatever you return, if you're talking about return values to be used for like C-style error checking, it technically doesn't matter what value you pick, which is why an arbitrary number is picked. But I totally get what you mean, that it's a little bit nicer to be able to read it as text when you're inspecting it. I don't have a huge amount of reverse engineering experience. Anyway, I wanted to add in the editor section under GUI input, I think I'm going to add another GUI. I'm going to say like ImGui helpers, I guess would be what I would call it. I prefer the error code system in the C++ standard library. Yeah, with std error. Std error is pretty nice. I like the syntactic sugar, but I tend to prefer just doing it the C way, where you're just doing an integer comparison. The strings are completely unrelated as well. Returning the dereferenced key emote is when returning the dereferenced key emote. I don't know what you mean by key emote. Is when returning from call to erase window background. Yeah, the dereferenced results string. It's all just ones and zeros, man. But yeah, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a new section, a new include for the editor includes. So that's going to be when you're working inside of the editor ImGui stuff, these will be helpers. So you'll have ImGui helpers, or without the underscore. And these will basically just be ways for you to ways for me to augment what you can do with ImGui to make it easier to do stuff inside of the editor. I even did some testing, and the compiler is smart enough to convert the dereferencing into constant strings and skip the dereferencing step entirely. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's pretty handy. Compiler optimizations are the best. Constant int pointers. Yeah, constant. What's the word? Constant replacement, or constant. I forget where they takes in and makes a constant value, just puts it inline, or constant inline is what it's called. That's a pretty good optimization. Constant ints. The thing about error code is that you have a lot of them, and then you have to reserve an integer range for them. Unix has a few error codes. 132 APIs it got a ton. That's undefined behavior. You should use memcopy instead. Well, what's up? You may not have been here when he said this, but he is using C, so I think that that's technically the correct way to do it. Because if you're doing like in C, you would just do something like this, you know, and then just do a C style cast because it's C, to cast it so that you're getting the ROM memory instead. If that makes sense. So I don't think I think it would be undefined behavior in C++. I'm not sure that it is in C. Not that I'm a C programmer, by the way. But let me get into my source lists and add these files. You still just use it as C with classes. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of a lot of the stuff C++ has to offer, but the more I work with it, the more I lean back on C-style stuff. Like, this engine is pretty much functionally programmed, like functional programming instead of object-oriented stuff. But if I recall correctly, that's still not okay in C because of alignment. You might get lucky in a platform that has unaligned access instruction. Oh, you're totally right. Because it's possible for the character to be not aligned on a 4-byte boundary. That's a good point. Yeah, so mem copy, like, is align as a C thing in modern C? Okay, so there is a line as, so you might be able to use that and then cast it. But I don't know. It might be better just to literally do away with the string literals in general and then just, you know, fucking type it into a converter and type in the raw hex. Or is there, I think in C++ there's, you can do, I think you can do string literal conversions into integers. It's a really obscure thing. But I'm not returning a meaningful string at all, I just want to do a non-zero Boolean check. Why don't you do hexadecimal? It would restrict you to, you know, the letters A through F, but it can be useful if you actually wanted to say something like there's OX bad or O bad food. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but this is a Linux kernel thing, I think. Oh, I typed in 2 A's. Yeah, it's like you can just like make an expression out of hexadecimal, like dead beef, and that might be all you need. x86, unaligned access is probably slower. ARM is like, nope. C programmers have been doing this hack for years, yeah. I'm extending the editor section, so let me do that down here. Include enterprise editor, and we'll have ImGui helpers. And in the source section, down here, we'll add it here. Before I tried dereferencing strings, I entered the characters into a hex editor, converted that into a constant. It's just to replace a, yeah. Yeah, as long as you don't spend too much time on it. Because these are, you know, fun things to talk about, but ultimately it's not as important as just having an error code. Okay. So added these files. Now ImGui helpers is available. I'm going to add. Well, I'm gonna copy the style of drag scalars. I should say float. I don't think that I'm doing any error checking at all yet. Yeah, I'm with what's up. It's more important to just have functional error codes. You're going to need to dedicate ranges. It ultimately doesn't matter what the integer is at a machine code level. There we go. All right. So there's drag scalar, which is the low level case, and then there's these abstractions on top. I think I want to do an implementation of all four of these floats, and then one of these. Maybe I want to do an implementation of each of these. I'm the madman coder, using random numbers instead of one for Boolean checks. I don't think I want to get myself in too deep with making with making all of these changes to ImGui, but I kind of think I need to do an implementation for all of these if I want to be really on top, using random numbers instead of one. The convention hate, yeah. Language designers hate him. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do an implementation of drag scalar, which basically wraps this using the special call. Oh man. I know at the very least I'm going to want to have implementations for drag float 1, 2, 3, and 4, and int 1, 2, 3, 4, because these are commonly used things. But I don't know about graphics, so I may ask what you mean by implement renderer 2D. So right now I'm talking about implementing Dear ImGui extensions. So this is stuff that's going to be used inside of the inspector panel of the editor. We did one earlier before you popped on the stream. We implemented a work in progress feature because I really wanted to have it. When you go to make an inspector for any system, whether that's a renderer or another game system, you're realistically going to need to be able to quickly add drag scalars that represent mixed values. Until I did this change, you couldn't do that at all. However, in order for you to utilize that feature, you have to still do a whole bunch of boilerplate ImGui code, and I'm going to try and abstract that away. I don't know if I'm explaining this well at all. If we take a look at the inspector view real quick, just looking at what we had to do for the transform component, like all of this code, all of everything I just selected here could be one line, and I want to be able to do all of this like in a whole bunch of different places. But I don't want to have to make it so that you have to do your own every time, if that makes sense. It looks like it's written by a professional until you stumble across a struct, starting with fedulink.madler with the 0 documentation on what it means, and yeah, you may want to pick one language and stick with it, just for the sake of consistency. Oh, thank you. I just threw a dart and nailed it, I guess. Okay. So heading back to widgets, I'm going to need to make a version of these that handles mixed ranges for every value. Okay, so here's what I'll do. I'll just start by copying out the names. I don't think I'll do the implementation style that they've got. No, I should though. Okay, I'll start with drag scalar and from there I can do wrappers for 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the signature for drag scalar n, I'll just copy the whole thing actually. The signature for drag scalar n is this. It's got a whole bunch of things that'll probably just be passing through most of it. I'm going to add another namespace to this, ImGui. So that when you go to use it, it's ImGui. ImGui drag scalar n. You see, I'm working on this engine solo for now, but that's a problem for future me in my coding style. It's just fuck the conventions. I want to have a bit of fun while coding, or else I'll get burned out like before when I was more on following conventions. Yeah, it's you do gotta have fun while you're working, otherwise what's the point, right? Okay, I'm gonna need some ImGui headers in here, so let's do that. Include ImGui.h and got a label, data type, yeah, and I'm the opposite. I follow a lot of modern convention best practices. Yeah, it's of the two perspectives, it's definitely safer to follow convention. But if you know what you're doing, then feel free to do what you want. Right now, I enjoy programming, but I can't imagine making a career out of it unless indie game dev ends up paying well enough to make a living. Yeah, it's a tough beat. Indie game developers that, you know, actually sell their product, they can sometimes make a whole lot of money, but there's, for every very successful game developer in the indie space, there's like dozens that are not. So it's you know, don't quit your day job, in other words. I'm thinking my way through this API. So the whole point is that when you go to use drag scalar n the normal way, what you're doing is you're just saying, here's an array of floats or integers or whatever. Draw me enough fields on the interface to set them all directly, and then update the values for me for each of the values in that array. That would be what p data here points to. However, that does not allow for individually mixing each field. So that is, if you've got, you know, 4 floats and you want each float to be independently mixed or not mixed, we'll need to have data for that as well. So what I'll do is I'll pass in a bool pointer, p underscore data is mixed or something like that. I'll follow the same convention, the same naming convention as ImGui uses for now. Maybe renaming a few things later. So what this will do is this will point to an array of booleans telling us whether the field is mixed. Why not an array of pointer? Well, because it's always going to be a bool. The reason why this is void is because the call that this is wrapping, drag scalar n in ImGui, it can use any kind of data type. It can use any of, where's the, oh, it's an integer. That's interesting. But it can use integers, floats, doubles, you name it. However, is data mixed is always going to be a bool, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to do the void pointer thing here. We've all heard of the odd lucky developers who have sold 1 million copies of projects. My life plan is just to do indie game dev in my free time and forget lucky. To sell millions of copies, I can move on to full-time game dev. Yeah, it is essentially hoping to win the lottery, but it's not. Doesn't mean that it's still better than buying a lottery ticket because it's doing something that you want to do. Okay. And then there's a problem of the return value. Previously, the return value would return true if there was a change to a value, or to any one of the values. I might want to have a pointer to an array of... No, that doesn't work. I want to be able to get the status of whether a value was changed. Any particular value. So what I'll do is I'll do an array of bools for p-value is mixed, and then I'll do a array of p value has changed. We're sticking with the C style for right now because this is wrapping a C style function, and most of these will just be passed through. But also because you're not going to be using this directly. You're going to be using one of the functions that wraps it. At least this is free to do and it's a fun hobby. Yeah. Older versions of my engine did follow conventions a little bit more, but I've never told what the SFRT part of my... What's SFRT stand for? Let's say this is not how I want to name my variables, but whatever. Alright, so label, data type, pdata, and then we added these two new parameters here. Okay, and then I guess what I'll do is for the return value is I'll return whether any of these have returned true. Stop fucking resetting this engine. Yep. It's too easy to go and start something over. Yeah. Only got 800 lines of code. Hey, that's not a problem. People who count their lines of code should only do it for measuring like roughly how much typing they did that day. Let's count on how many resets forever ago. Yeah, I've had to do a number of refactors, even live on stream, with this engine, just because it got in my way. My habit now is to only refactor or reset something if it is actively a problem, and then otherwise just move and keep moving and then worry about tech debt when it's actually a problem. Okay, so I think this wrapper will work. I think this is probably just what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the implementation file. We'll say include ImGui helpers. Oh wait, that's enterprise/editor/ImGui helpers. And then down here we can do the implementation. So we'll do namespace or EP ImGui is what we're doing. I remember I started off with SDL 2D rendering and moved on to OpenGL rendering with SDL. Then I ditched SDL and moved to Pure 132 API, and now you're doing DirectX. Yeah, nice. Well, it's good to learn all that stuff, but yeah, it's having to change your API completely out under the hood. That's pretty rough refactoring, pretty rough refactoring wise. Anyway, so there's the signature. We can implement this now. So at the heart of this, we're just going to be calling the ImGui call. ImGui drag scalar n. Basically just passing through all this data. And I keep bumping my mic. Let me move it. Sorry about that. So we're basically just going to be passing through most of these straight on. Label, data type, p data, p, and then components, p speed. Oh, but I'm actually going to have to do a re-implementation of it. Hardly did refactoring. All I did was weekly resetting. I reset progress as I was not happy with the current state. Oh, you just mean that you just started over. Yeah. I hate it whenever I Google Visual Studio, it gives me Visual Studio Code results. Whoops. Whoopsie. Yeah, Visual Studio Code I think is a lot more popular now. It's probably on par with Visual Studio now. Let me just take a look. IDE usage survey. Yeah. Technology. Most popular technologies. Databases, cloud platforms, web frameworks, other frameworks and libraries, other tools, Git, Docker, Yarn, Unity 3D. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Visual Studio. Okay, it's actually way more than R. Visual Studio Code is the most popular, according to Stack Overflow, which, you know, take that with a grain of salt because it's Stack Overflow. It's a cesspool where all goodwill goes to die. Where's Xcode on this? Okay, there it is. I knew Xcode had to be up here somewhere because like you have to use it at a certain point on Mac. Managed to break out of the resetting cycle by expressing myself while writing. As a consequence, turned a blind eye to conventions, and just in general having fun while writing code and putting together my engine. Yeah. And probably because of those JavaScript people, yeah, probably. Anyway. So let me head to... Yeah, this is going to be quite a lot of work, but it'll be well worth it. Because no matter how much work I'm doing here with ImGui, it is still less work than writing my own graphics, immediate mode graphics framework. Like, yeah. Right, so starting out by just copying and pasting all the code, I will need to include ImGui and include ImGui internal. I don't even have a main or win main function. How do you not have a main function in your game engine? That's kind of important. Actual entry point is... Oh, did you... you went and renamed your entry point to be that big long thing? Dude, come on, man. Just use main, or just use win main. Like, we want people to know what the function does. No, just no. All right. It's nice to have that abstraction for mixed fields. Writing the boilerplate is time consuming. Yep. I want to encourage folks to be able to just go in and make an inspector that does everything that you want. The way that Unity does it is they literally just they roll their own GUI now. It used to be that they used ImGui, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But they eventually did their own, and they use C# reflection to actually come up with those fields, and they have like their own library. And I want it to be still something familiar, so I'm not having people learn from scratch a new immediate mode GUI solution. They're using ImGui, but yeah, for them to be able to do things that are very common in game engines, you still kind of need to have a whole bunch of boilerplate. So. Okay, so they used get current window, which is the ImGui namespace probably. Although it does get tedious having to clear every single distribution executable with Microsoft, so yeah. That's interesting though. When you have a custom entry point in C and then you go to compile it, it doesn't just, like the machine code doesn't just get rid of the symbol name technically. Like, I mean, if you have the symbol file, then you can obviously see what you named the main function, but without it, is the entry point different at all? Side effect of using the custom entry point, CRT and it gets skipped, not a... Oh, shoot, really? I didn't know that. Maybe there's another flag you can specify so that CRT is still initted before your custom entry point. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that gets invoked before your main function, for sure. But your CRT in it getting skipped, that's surprising. I had assumed, and I haven't really looked into this, but I had assumed that when at the time that your CRT links, that's when it gets initialized. That is like when the DLL links up. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that you have the ability to... Well, or I'm surprised that that it doesn't automatically initialize the CRT before your entry point. That's surprising to me. So get current window is not visible here. Okay, here we go. So it's declared in ImGui internal, but I'm not seeing it. Why not? But a real entry point always provides void? You mean... I guess I don't understand. Oh, you're talking about where the execution actually starts versus the main function. But why would you want to circumvent the main function? It's so useful. Oh, There were red squiggles that just disappeared on their own. So I guess it was just Visual Studio Code being slow. Fuck me. Alright. Begin group, push ID. I'm just going to prefix these all with the ImGui namespace. You've got custom command line handling, and the process module is fetched through get module handle. Huh. But is there any benefits for that? Like, why would you do that? Is the stream a little bit laggy? It might just be my internet connection. I don't have a particularly good one. Seems to be working on OBS, so I'm afraid it probably might just be my internet connection. But yeah, why would you implement your own entry point? Why would you not want to use main and take the argc and argv? Okay, so previously I was using, the implementation code I copied just directly accessed this array. There's a helper function for it called ImGui data type get info, where you just pass in the data type, and then it returns by reference. Wait, it returns the address of that value. So I would change this to be an arrow. I can't tell, running a VM kind of eats all my CPU memory. argc and argv can be fetched with a single call to command line to arg vw using. Yeah, I mean, you can do that, but I don't see why that would. I don't see why that would have to do with bypassing the main function. Okay, so we've got the basic implementation working now. This theoretically should compile. Let me include it somewhere. One advantage could be the ability to process it anywhere without having to pass values around. I mean, those functions still work no matter where you go. So to clarify, I'm not asking why would you use those functions. I'm asking why would you bypass, why would you not use the default main function? You barely use the command line at all, so. Well, I guess if your application just straight up doesn't and will never use command line options, then yeah, I could see maybe the slight optimization of not having to deal with that. But I'd imagine that it doesn't have really any performance benefit, like any practical performance benefit, stripping out all that stuff. You've had a streak of overly optimizing. Yeah, be careful with that. It's a hard habit to kick. Every byte must be freed. Yeah. All right. Let's at least confirm that this compiles, and then we'll work on the re-implementation. Okay, got some problems. What are those? Probably stuff I typed in that I forgot to fix. Oh, this is a public header. Yeah, right. That's why. That platform specific, use it anywhere, isn't better than having an abstraction layer for platform code. Yeah. Okay, so we still got some problems here. So I'm not getting the global anymore. Where's my global context? Oh, I haven't. Right. This is the stuff I was. That's the stuff I'm replacing with. Yeah, hang on. I have a whole bunch of typing in here from before that I didn't actually want to use. And I just forgot to delete it. Okay. Right. So here's where I want to be. And then inside of here I will use the one line call that will do the mixed multi-field. Okay, compiled. And then that include should be available. ImGui helpers.h. I don't really care for supporting other platforms besides Windows, having a blast of 132. I barely know how to use Linux, as it's 4 years since last, and I didn't write code or use the terminal. And when it comes to macOS, I work in IT, and when Macs come in, it all goes to my colleague. Yeah. You know, different strokes for different folks. Yeah, the question of optimizing too early and not optimizing, not optimizing too early, that's a balancing act for sure. I know that a lot of folks will say never ever optimize until you have something that works. I find myself in the middle ground a little bit. Casey Muratori has this talk about non-pessimization is what he calls it. And non-pessimization is basically the idea that you aren't optimizing. You're not spending a whole bunch of time like measuring your performance and doing optimization, and you're not spending a whole lot of time on your code at all when you first write it, but you do apply what you already know you're going to have to do when you write the code the first time. So like if you're working in a situation where you know, like from the get-go, like what data structure you should use to have good performance, you should just start with that data structure instead of going through and writing some code that you'll have to totally rewrite in order to later implement that data structure, if that makes sense. So this would mean that like directly using object pools instead of linked lists, for example. But that's a balancing act because you can totally go too far and start wasting time. The idea of non-pessimization is to save time. And not everybody agrees with it. So now that I know that this thing is compiling, let's head back to the ImGui helpers. .cpp. Close the others. All right, now we need to make this do what we need it to do. I've got the optimization in my logic. While I'm writing, I just use the bare bones code to achieve my goal, and then when reviewing it in post, there's very little optimization you can actually perform. Yeah, and that can be good. It just you have to make sure that you're spending your time wisely. Pick the right data structure and mindful of data is way more important. Yeah. In test-driven development, they don't think about that, in my experience. Is that when you're doing test-driven development, you're supposed to hack together the fastest thing that you can type that will solve the test or pass the test, and then from there you actually go in and you optimize, and that can just mean that you write it one way the first time and then have to rewrite it a second way the second time, and it's a waste of time. Okay, so we need to track is value mixed and has changed. So where do we use pdata for the first time? So we're doing a for loop through the components. We're casting the data. So we're actually, it looks like when we're iterating through each of these components, we are stepping pdata forward by the byte size returned by some helper function somewhere. That would be here, data type get info. But what's the point of doing this? Oh, it's this is the point. So we do value changed or equals ImGui drag scalar. Right, okay. And then this is where I can do the change to the code. All right. I think I found it. It all kind of ticked when I was writing the config manager for my game engine. I just went, this is how I like to write code, and all my other code is following the same style. Yeah, that's good. As long as I think everybody will tell you your style doesn't matter. It's sticking to your style that matters. Okay, so this is the spot right here where we invoke and set up a drag scalar for whatever value. So I got to circumvent a couple of things. First, I gotta set the value changed to be equal to, or store the value changed value in the array out value has changed. And then I need to conditionally turn on the flag for mixed field. So I guess that's probably going to be the first part. We'll say if is mixed, or p-value is mixed, and the index is going to be I. Then we will do the flag. And in order to make it, here, I'll type and then I'll talk. In order to make it a little bit easier with regards to resetting the p-value, or the out value has changed, I think I want to do the flag toggle within the same block. So we'll do it ImGui item flag, push item flag. We'll push the ImGui item flags mixed. Sure. And then pop the flag. There's a little code duplication going on here, but I'm okay with that because I'd rather make it crystal clear that the push and pop are from the same logical block. Config system is pretty capable, I'd say. It supports wide strings, integers, and floats. It parses full paths to fetch entry names and read writes to fully human readable text. Nice. Nice. For my configuration system, I'm going a whole bunch more decentralized than that. I am not actually doing a centralized configuration system per se. I will have a centralized resource compiler, which you might consider in the way that you would use it to configure things. You might consider that a centralized configuration system, but for the most part, I'm letting systems do their own configuration. Yeah, configuration systems are. Yeah, I mean, game engines in general. You have a whole lot of moving parts to think about, and configuration systems can be really complicated. So many ways you can go with it. So what I'm going to do here is that instead of... So value changed, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, it's the return value. This returns true. This function returns true if you've changed any one of the fields in your graphic scaler. I am going to... Instead of doing this, I'm going to assign the value directly to the out value has changed bool array. So we'll do this at I equals that. And then at the bottom we will do or equals for that value. My system is... Oh, I didn't read your text before it disappeared from my screen. My system is centralized per file. Each directory is its own entry with subdirectories, which can be other directories or data fields. Okay, so it's like you have a directory tree containing your configuration data? Or is that just a structure inside of the configuration file? Each entry contains a pointer to a base allocation for new entries and a count of allocated entries, where it then goes down the tree path to find the value. Okay, so this is not... You weren't literally setting up directories inside of your project that represents your configuration. that was what I was confused about. But yeah, that's handy to have a tree structure for that kind of stuff. Yeah. Trees are great. I feel like I'm overlooking something here, but I can't quite spot it. So if the p-value is mixed, we'll push the flag. We set the out value has changed as a result of the drag scaler, so we can tell for each individual field whether the value has changed. No, I think that's everything. So this code can just go outside of the if-else block. Like that. My Clang formatting rules makes this look a little different than it does in the original implementation. But that's fine. Okay, I think this is good. So with this done, I should have I should have implementations of wrappers as well. So that was this business. We had drag float 2, drag float 3, drag float 4, and I'll start with those. A value in the config file can be represented as dir1, dir2, value 1 to 3, taking one line config file. Yeah. When parsing the path, I've added an option to create. Yeah, that's really handy. I have a similar structure with INIs, though mine's cheating a little bit. It's not literally making a tree structure, it's just making keys have the tree structure in the string. And then you use a hash table to work that out. I might want to add a version of drag scalar as well. Now that I'm thinking about it. Nah, that's fine. Here we go. Alright, head back to the header. We'll drag float. And then I can probably just inline these actually. So I'll copy. Yeah, I should just start by copying all of the prototypes. Also, I haven't mentioned it, but I'm an avid user of the restrict keyword. Are you? I am not. I don't use that keyword hard. I don't think I've ever used that keyword. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm not even sure. Actually, I'm not even sure if I remember what it does. Let me Google it. Okay. So it's like for like a hint to the compiler. Oh, you've been writing me and I didn't see it. Last check C++ doesn't have restrict. No, it doesn't. It's a C thing. Last error do don't. It's careful optimization with pointers and pointing to memory. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It sounds like it's a compiler suggestion basically. Except where it actually does throw a compilation error. It's like an assertion, huh? That you are only ever going to access the object or dereference the value through that pointer. If I followed that correctly. Hey Goku, welcome in. Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm just probably not going to look it up right now. No offense. Oh, thanks for the follow, Bubbaloo. Bubbaloo Ranger. Bubbaloo Ranger. That's a fun name. Welcome in. Hey Goku. We are re-implementing Dear ImGui things. Well, not re-implementing. We're making a version of them that is useful for game engines. basically the ability to have mixed fields was not added to Dear ImGui. I made a fix that should probably close out an issue on this topic, but I'm gonna need to spend a little bit of time to make sure that it's compatible with the master or with the development branch, and get that all formatted correctly for a pull request. But beyond that, it's kind of hard to use in the case of multi-floats, so I am making my own. Okay. And I'll give these guys better names later. But these could probably literally be inline, because they're just wrappers for drag scalar n, for the new drag scalar n. It'll be... You know what? Can I just literally copy and paste these? I can, can't I? I can just copy and paste this code, and it'll work for my update. Let me do that. Okay. And then I make these inline because all they're doing is they're calling the wrapped code. Ah. There we go. And then getting rid of the ImGui namespace on it. Okay. Drag scalar is undefined. Oh, because this actually does use I don't need an implementation of the first one. All right, drag float 2. What are you complaining about? Oh, right. So this is where the differences start. So I need to have in these implementations, I need to handle the is mixed and out value has changed. So first, let me Alt-Shift-F to clean format this, and I will add these two parameters to these. Well, I'll do it a little bit nicer. So I can do, for a drag float 2, I can do a bool, instead of being the value, and it'll be say v is mixed. Make that a size 2. And then bool v out changed or something. I'll worry about better names later. And then I can use these inside of that call. I'll repeat for these. Okay. I could go through and make this like C++y and make it like a lot nicer, but my goal here is to match the style of ImGui, so that way the person can just use it without, they can switch between drag float 2 and my implementation and the ImGui implementation without having to change like everything about their call. They can just get rid of the 2 extra parameters. Okay. So after the v pointer, we just pass in the v is mixed. And then v out changed. And that should do. Okay. Okay, I think that'll work. And now that I've got that implementation going, now is the time to test it. if we go to inspector, now let's go to sprites and actually use it in the implementation. So render a 2D in batch draw sprite on sprite inspector. All right. So down here we have actually we already have an array of bools. Let's do this for something that uses floats. Oh, the UV bounds are floats, so never mind, let's do that. So we already have the array for floats. Let's do EP ImGui, drag float 4, because there's the left, right, bottom, top. The label will be UVs. The array of floats, do we already have that? We do. So that'll be no, we don't have it. So I'm going to need to do an array here. We'll say UV values. This will need to be the size of entities. This will need to be the size of selected entities. So I'll do a vector. And this will be I guess it'll be selected UVs, like that. And then selected entities, we already have the set, so what I can do is I can construct this with the correct size. Or can I? Do the count and an allocator first and last. So what I'll do is I'll immediately go to selected UVs dot reserve selected entities dot size, like that. And then this will just make sure that we don't have to do reallocations when we push back items into selected UVs. Okay. Is UV mix. So actually, UV bounds. So current sprite UV bounds. UV bounds is an array of 4 floats. I'll need this to be a vector of arrays. Can I do that like this? I feel like that might pose a problem, but maybe not. Okay, I guess it works. And then we can do multi-dimensional array access for this. Cool. So here's where we're doing the isUV mixed calculation. We're just checking to see whether the current sprite UV bounds equals the first sprite UV bounds. For every single selected entity. And then we could do UV values selected UVs, I guess. Dot pushback, and then we push back an array of 4 values by our value reference. So I think I can probably just do this. Does that work? Okay. Const float reference. Well, this is it's either doing what I want it to do, or it's just pushing back the pointer to the 4 floats. If this was C++20, I could do this as spans, but I guess we'll see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then I'll do it a different way. But pushing back. No, that's not going to work. I don't think. Must be both copy, constructible, and assignable. Okay, and that's not going to work. Yeah, so we'll have to do it C++y way, which is a little annoying. But up here we'll do std array or float, and then size 4. Yeah, that works fine. So back to the open source discussion. I probably won't make my engine open source, but I'm happy to show off the code. Yeah, you just got to be careful about what you show if you're doing closed source. Discuss my madness, point out basic stuff I missed. Yeah. Making a project open source does help a lot with that, because you don't have to worry about what you're showing. But if you ever want to keep if you want your project to become, like, if you want to sell it, for example, under closed source, then you have to think carefully about what you share. So I do recommend deciding on a license before you start sharing code. But yeah, it'd be really cool to show off what you got. Okay. Selected DVs, not pushback. We will need to pass through those values. I think what I can do is I can initialize a std array implicitly. No, I guess not. I don't use std array very often. I prefer C arrays or vectors. I've got no clue how to do validate copy protection, as I've got no online infrastructure, and keys can be easily copied and shared. Yeah, copy protection, boy. In the indie space, oftentimes I say don't even try. Because people are going to break that almost immediately. Like, I mean, you take a look at, how many AAA games, spend so much time and money on copy protection and anti-piracy measures and things like that, that their game gets cracked like 2 days after ship, right? But yeah, it's if that's the sort of thing that you care about, then yeah, you gotta. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that, and naturally, the methods by which people detect copy in piracy stuff, like that stuff is kind of like trade secrets. So it's gonna be hard to teach yourself how to do that stuff from online resources for sure. Where's the constructor? Okay, it does follow the rules of aggregate initialization. Can I just do it in place back? And have have it accept the Okay, that seems to work. So what it's doing is it's passing through the array of floats to the constructor, I think. Copy protection is a pointless endeavor, even if you do it online validation with keys. Then what if we set up fake web server locally that always returns okay? Yeah. Yeah, cybersecurity is just... It's almost an oxymoron. It's very hard to get right. Okay. STD array, vector array float, replace back. Const float for type. Const float. That still feels wrong. It looks like it's using the constructor where we're using a const reference for the UV bounds, and what I need to do is I need to make a copy. Yeah, there's going to be another error down here, so I'll comment that out. But well, I think it'll compile what's up. I think the thing that I'm confused about is whether it's actually copying in the values versus just pushing back the pointer. Yeah, and what do we got here? The matching. Okay, so there is actually a construction problem. You can push back in a default construct array, and then assign each float one at a time. Yeah, I guess that's what I'll have to do. Technically speaking, the memory is already allocated because I reserved it, so I guess it's not. I guess that's not a bad way to do it. I'll probably have to do that. I don't plan on any copy protection and just hope that most people are like me. Pirate is only as the last resort. Thanks a lot, Rockstar. Yeah. Piracy in general, I'm not a huge fan of. I grew up, peer pressured by a whole bunch of kids that were just totally down with pirating whatever they wanted, music and games and movies off the internet. And I just never was down with that. For me, piracy is like a thing that you use for, like if it's not possible or ethical to access the content legally. So for example, if there's a television show that's literally not sold anywhere or not streamed anywhere and there's no way for you to get it, then yeah, fucking get it off of Pirate Bay or whatever. Probably read an online game that's very hard to emulate. Rockstar makes some of their great games, but their support is abhorrent. Yeah, they're. I have mixed feelings about Rockstar for sure. Yeah, it'd be really nice if I could just and place them, but I guess that's not how it's going to work. So what I'll do then is I'll do what you suggested. What's up? It's not really a bad way to go. I'll do an in place back. Or you know what I'll do? I know what I'll do. Instead of doing reserve and pushback on these, I know that I'm going to be populating one for every one of the sprites. Oh yeah, so I've got another problem I've overlooked. I was making a selected UVs, make it the size of selected entities, but not every selected entity has this component on it. So actually I need entities with sprites. So at this point in the code, entities with sprites is the actual list that has all the entities that have sprite components attached. So what I'll do is I'll do an std vector of std array float 4, and this will be the UV vals. I guess I'll call it UV vals now. And I will default construct it like this. So what this will do is it'll reserve memory for everything. So it'll automatically construct. Excuse me. It'll default construct all of the elements, I believe. So what I can do is, instead of having to push back or whatever, I just directly address the memory. So down where we were, right below where we do the comparison on all of the dimensions, I'll actually do it inside of the internal loop. We'll say UV vals at entity. Wait, that's not right. This is a range-based for loop, so we don't have the index to use. That's annoying. Yeah, so I'll do what I was doing before. I'll do the reserve, and then I'll do pushback. And then I can say UVVals dot back dot and or whatever. And this should be the std array, and so I can do at I equals current sprite blah, blah, blah. I don't have a lot of comments in my code. I don't really find it all that useful. And really, the best way is to actually read the code and understand what it does. Most comments are only with function definitions that will have an effect. Yeah, you definitely only want to comment when you can't understand what's going on without the comments. Yeah, if you need comments to explain what your code does, you probably need to write it better, right? So I totally agree with you there. Up here. I only comment when it comes to math because I suck at it. Oh yeah, math is awful. Agreed. Outside of build systems, math is the worst part of programming. Alright, UV vals and place back. And yeah, okay. So now we should have UV vals ready to go. All right, so down to where we were trying to use this thing. We've got the UVs. We need the values themselves, which are now going to be located at UV vals. Oh, that's confusing. Hang on just a second. Yeah, sorry, my sister needed me for something. Anyway, had to drag in a friend to actually make my 45-degree window demo. Yeah, I'm curious how you did that, because that's an interesting thing. it seems like it would break what Microsoft wants you to be able to do with Windows, but yeah, it's also not something that I've ever thought to try before. Like to pick apart your code sometime. Anyway, so we need to pass in the 4 values. I don't need a big old array of values, I just need 4. I am apparently not firing on all cylinders right now. So this is actually way simpler than I was making it. Way simpler. Actually, I can just do 0. That's all I needed to do. And then I don't need to do this for every entity, or for every selected entity. I need to do this for just the first sprite. I can just do a mem copy too. Does that work? Size of 16? Yeah, 4 by 4. Yeah. So what I do is that I print out of the main window to an off-screen GDI device context, then I upload the pixel data to a DirectX capture and render a diamond shape with the texture to rotate it, and download the rotated image to a new GDI bitmap where I blit it to a layered window. Oh, you're talking about what you do for the window? Oh, that's pretty clever. Okay, I see what you're saying. So basically, you just take what's rendered, take the actual window rendered as Windows renders it, and then you turn that into a bitmap, and then render that directly. That's pretty cool. I'm sure I probably dramatically oversimplified. But yeah, I'll have to take a look at the code. That's pretty clever. Good job. Okay. So here's the new plan. I don't actually need to have all of the values. I just need to have the first. And then this will be what we supply, UV-vals will be what we supply to the ImGui helper function. And then if we make a change that sets the value to then that will come out in the v out changed Boolean output. I think I've said that correctly. At least how Windows renders it for printing. Enjoy Windows 7 basic theme. Yeah. Okay. So bool is mixed. That is UV mixed. And then out changed. We'll need to add that as well. Okay. I think I'm on a roll. Code's open source on my GitHub. Haven't cleaned it up yet, but it works. Nice. Small thingy that bugged me. It will be UB to use front if entities with sprites is empty. Oh yeah, but I think, don't I? You're right. Yeah, I totally thought I had early returned if it was empty. But I guess I didn't. Oh wait, no, there was a reason. Yeah, 416, yeah, I see it too. There actually is a reason that's not immediately obvious looking at this code why it's guaranteed to have an entity. And that's because in the inspector.cpp, where this actually gets invoked, down here, we do a check for entity has component type first. So I do know for absolute certain that before, yeah, UB stands for undefined behavior, Persimed. But yeah, so I do know for absolute certain that before the callback is invoked, that check entity component type returns true. Otherwise we break and we leave the loop. Or we leave this loop and then move on to the next. Yeah. So, right? Hang on, maybe I'm misreading my own code. This was the intention of this code, at least, was to make it. Yeah, no, you're totally right though, because like if you're reading that code, you might spot that as undefined behavior, and it probably should be a little bit more clear. Component type, component name, callback. Now I'm wondering if I should change it. Has component type. If it has a component type, then we say component type in use is true. Okay, and this is the check. If component type in use is true, we break out of this for loop, and then we check against it before we do the collapsing header. So if the callback is invoked at all, then we know that it has a component type. But this might be a case where I should put a comment, right? Because that's the point of this. A little bit wordy, but when invoked by the editor, or when oh, but this is I'm working on renderer 2D, so this function call doesn't really apply. Yeah, so I'm going to remove that comment. This is something that I should put in the documentation of the registration function, which is sprite inspector. Do I have? Here it is. Register component inspector. Presently has no documentation, but I should, when I go to do my documentation, actually mention that there's a guarantee. Actually, my config system stores all data internally as text and converts it on demand. Yeah, text-based configuration is the way to go in general, in my opinion. Just because you never know whether, like, even if it's obtuse to a end user, like maybe there's an IT person out there that wants to automate something and they want to be able to directly edit the configuration files. So that's a good move. But anyway, note, let's just say never be invoked will only be invoked if I guess that makes sense. Callback will only be invoked if one of the selected entities has the registered component type. Plus, if you're having issues with starting the game, you may want to try touching the config file before it. Yeah, sure. That's another good reason. Though I would argue that if you can't anticipate those situations, that you should resolve it yourself. But yeah, anything that you can do to make it easier for troubleshooting. But yeah, I'm not going to bother with the rest of the documentation right now. I'm just going to put that note in there so I don't forget to do it. And head back to what we were doing in sprites. Okay. Okay. Now we got UV vals passed in, pass in whether it's mixed. We need an out buffer. That's this. And for development as well, easier to use Notepad than dedicated, yeah. I'm gonna review what I did in the inspector. Yeah. I don't have default values for the other items. I should do that. So this should be enough. However, in ImGui helpers.h, none of these have the default parameters to pass through. So I should do that now. ImGui widgets, or no, that would be ImGui.h. And we're looking for what am I looking for? Drag scalar. Okay. Or drag scalar in. Right, so in this prototype, we've got all of these default parameters. I'm just gonna pass them through. Label, data type, data, components, speed. Okay. Paste. Alright, so now we've got default parameters for speed, min, max, whatever. And there's going to be some default parameters for drag float as well. These guys. Everything after the data pointer. Oh wait, this is for the singular drag float, which I don't have an overload for. That'll be this for drag flow 2. And then, right? Oh, I need to do the paste after VOut changed. Okay. Okay, that's looking good. And are these literally the same for? The default parameters are identical otherwise, so I'll just paste the same thing into these slots. Okay, and then heading back to my code here, a little red squiggle should go away, and it went away. All right, so let's see how well that worked. Or if it worked. I'm just wanting to monitor my core temps, so I launched that. There we go. Compiled successfully. Let's see how we got on. We open up a scene and we grab some of these. Okay, now we've got UVs, but they're not populating with anything, which is interesting. And you can't edit them either. So I've overlooked something. Let's look at the very first sprite, which I believe is 5 on the X. That'd be this one, Madeline. It's sprite data. Oh, I know why this is. Well, I know why part of it is. There's two components to the workflow that I skipped the second. So taking a look at Inspector, just after midnight. Yeah, dude. Thanks for popping in. It was nice chatting with you. Get some sleep. We'll see you around. See you later. Yeah, so what I did is I got the flag for whether the value has changed, but I haven't done anything with it. So at this point, we've looped through all the entities. Not all that tired and want to work on more on engine. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, so this code, we iterate through all of the entities with sprites. We check their mix status, and then down here we do the drag flow 4. And then after this, we actually have to go and reassign the values out if there was a change. So what we need to do is we need to do for every const entity ID inside of entities with sprites. So for every entity with entities with sprites, we have to do the comparison. or not a comparison. We'll do if UV changed. What was the name of the variable? Is UV changed? If UV is changed, and we'll do a for loop for the iterator. Like that. If the UV has changed, then we will go through all of the entities and update their values for that value. So it'll be we'll get a reference to the current sprite. In this case, a regular reference, not a const reference, because we're going to be doing some editing here. Like that. And then we set current sprite dot UV bounds at I equals UV vals at I. So basically we are on a per element basis. We are detecting whether that element has been modified, and if it has, then we will update every selected sprite's value to match it. So that way, if there's a mixed value, they'll all be set to the same unified value that was set when you went to type in or drag on the box. Otherwise, we leave it alone. Yeah, and that's it, basically. Though I should probably put this up here and this down here. And actually this should be down here, and this should be up here. So we're going through every entity. When we go to do the UVs, we go through every UV component. Yeah, that makes sense. And then as we add new elements, we'll add another line that actually sets the value to be equal to whatever we changed. I think that makes sense. Okay. Cool. Now there was another problem, and that's that is UV mixed. For some reason, when we go to render, it thinks that we have a mixed value even when we don't. So something's wrong with this code. Let me compile and build, and then we'll do some debugging. See if we can't identify what the problem is. Okay, so we got the sprites. Select the first sprite. We got the dashes, even though we're only selecting one entity, so there should only be one value, so these can't be mixed. I'm curious if I can change. Okay, so it is editing. Like if I click and drag, I'm actually changing the UV of the sprite. This might be a little bit easier if I can see the yeah. So I'm loading up this is actually not the editor view, this is actually the game code running here, but I'm using it because it has a gray background and I can more clearly see. Actually, no, I can't. I was thinking I could clearly see the boundaries, but it's a transparent boundary, so never mind. Let's stop the game. Alright. So if I set this to 1 or 0, Or how about 2? Or -1? So it seems to be working as far as data entry goes. But the code where I'm determining whether the value is mixed is wrong. Oh, we're defaulting to mixed. Why did I do that? Did I do that in the transform component? No, I didn't. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I wanted to default to it not being. Okay, hopefully it's that simple. F7 and rebuild. Did it rebuild? I must not have had it in focus when I pressed F7. There we go, F5. Open up a scene. And in the scene, we'll select. Okay. So we're getting somewhere. So you'll notice that all of these actually have identical UVs. They literally are all just displaying the whole sprite over the whole quad. They're all perfectly square sprites. But now I can go in and slightly change. Which one is sprite 1? Oh, it's down here. I can change the UVs of a sprite down here. I'll do Alt click drag to make the UV selection a little bit slower. And now it's got weird wonky UVs. If I select multiple, okay, if I select multiple, there's a problem because these should be considered mixed at this point. So there's still more. So when we're determining the mix status, we are checking whether the UV bounds equals the other. If is UV mixed. These need to be true. Yeah, I wonder why I got these. I wonder why I had it completely backwards. Why I said is UV mixed, is min filter mixed, and I had them set to false instead of true and true instead of false. There must have been some logic there, but I don't know. I was kind of out of it last week. Yeah, all right. Close and recompile. I can't wait for the day when we have live loop reloading going on and I don't have to relaunch the application every time, but we're not quite there yet. Okay. Select sprite 1, change its, where's sprite 1? There. Make its UV coordinates a little wonky. And then select sprite 1 and sprite 2. Okay, so these are showing mixed correctly. And alright, I think that's it. I think that we have a way now. Because now these are going to be set to equal values. If I look at sprite 1 and sprite 2, the left edge is the same. And if I go and type in 0, 1, 0, 1, what's going on? Like that, they update all together. Nice, okay. So this may seem like a small thing, but basically I've got a way by which you can just do a drag float and then independently handle the mix status. So we've got a couple of big things working here. Hot reload. How would you do that? I can't think of a way. Load DLLs. Yeah, load DLLs or load SOs if you're on Mac or Linux. So technically speaking, I have a version of that working already. Because the code that you're looking at here for the game, if I hit play and I play the game, like this is actually from the game project, which is the DLL. So literally hot reloading is just the process of unhooking and then loading the DLL again after it's been recompiled. And you can do that in ways that are very seamless. So live loop reloading specifically refers to you're in the middle of a loop, and then in between each main loop in your game loop, you unload and reload the game module. And I guess technically speaking, it wouldn't directly apply to this problem because technically R2D lives inside of the engine instead of the game project, but it technically the framework is to be used by game projects. So if I just had this code copied and pasted into the game project, then I could just reload the game module and then it would reflect the new system that I've worked on. And eventually my plan is to have the editor do that automatically. So when you're making changes to your game systems, you flip back to the editor after recompiling and it just says, it just reloads, and then it'll reflect any changes that you made to its inspector code, reflect any changes that you made to its behavior. If you changed your renderer, you'll see the renderer will update to reflect those changes, things like that. So technically speaking, I can just say close project and then do that. There's an assertion though. What did I break? How did I break anything? We're calling create engine runtime while engine is still true. Okay, so apparently there's a problem with doing something, maybe while a scene is open. If I go to close project from the get-go, oh okay, there's actually maybe a problem I must have introduced at some point. Let's go to the thread stack. I wasn't expecting this to be a problem. So what's happening is I am clicking File, Close Project, and that's going to unload the DLL module. And at some point, runtime, create engine runtime is invoked while the engine already exists. So in scene editor draw, we invoke init. Oh no, hang on, what's this? Okay, so menu item, close project. If there's a game module loaded, then we gotta do all this stuff. So we'll set the title back to Enterprise Editor. We get rid of the project name out of the window title. We stop play mode. If there's a scene file loaded, we unload it. We call GameSys cleanup, destroy engine runtime, unload game module, create engine runtime. And so for some reason, destroy engine runtime is not destroying their engine runtime. Oh, that's weird. So at no point do we actually set engine to null pointer. I feel like I must have had this assertion added. Maybe I accidentally added it without testing it, and that's how I wound up in this situation. What's the history of this file? Huh. So I must have introduced this issue when I did the major refactor a few weeks ago, because this is the version that I posted at that time, and we have the same problem. So, alright. Somehow that one slipped under the cracks. Let's make sure that this works. There we go. And then if we go to the debug console, unloaded testgame.dll. Okay, cool. And then I can open it again. Open scene, and everything still works. Cool. Sweet. All right. So a lot of the code that I've got here is kind of messy and hacky. So I'm gonna need to spend some time to clean it up and post it to the appropriate places. So the implementing the feature of the item flag, what's it called? Mixed value ImGui item flags. Implementing that is a change to ImGui that I think I want to just make a pull request and say, hey, I fixed this problem for you guys. But that's gonna require me making sure I'm on the right branch and making sure that I'm following their style guide and everything. And then I probably want to do something a little bit more stylish than that little dash. Like it's just a hyphen and nothing. I might want to make that a little bit a little classier looking before turning that up. And then once that's done, I've got a bit of cleanup to do on my custom API. Probably going to rename some things, but the ImGui helpers, I have the ability to do scalars that support mixed values, and that, in addition to supporting mixed values, supports you detecting changes on any specific scalar inside of the multi-scalar. And that's going to require a little bit of cleanup as well before I commit it. I think I'll do that stuff offline. I am at almost 4 hours, and I think it's a good time to stop and do something else. Anyway, thanks for joining me. You have a great rest of your day, afternoon, or morning, or whatever. See you later.